The greatest battle
Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Oh, okay. I can hear you too. All right. It's good to see all of you. Our time is fast spent, so we'll start and then hopefully the others will join us. So we'll start with a word of prayer. Doc, can you please pray with us?
Yeah, sure.
You mean?
Oh, sorry, I've forgotten that.
You mean VCK? You mean VCK or our guest?
You VCK. Sorry, Edmund.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
No problem. Let's pray.
Yeah.
We thank you, Father, for this day. Thank you for this meeting also. And we thank you for our speaker who is ready to share with us. We pray that we will understand, and at the end of it all, we will all be satisfied with the lamp of our body so that we can make it bright for people to see. We give you all the praise, we give you all the glory. We pray for others to join us quickly so that we can all share in this. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. So this is the ABBY IMANI REVEALS Show. This is where we speak, we are real so that we can live the abundant life that Christ has given us. And I'm excited today because I have my good friend here to speak with us. But before then, I want to remind us, if we haven't subscribed, let's go to the YouTube and subscribe and also share the link with others so that we can also join us in our various discussions. So our guest is going to talk about himself. So I'll allow him to do the introduction. Like they say, it's good to hear from the horse's own mouth. So he will tell us his background and then share his story, where he started from, where he is now, probably where he's going, if he's willing to share. And then we also talk about the health of the lamp of our body, like I put it, but basically our eye. Our eyes are really important to us. And we want to make sure that we are taking good care of it. Yes, so that we can live how do I say it, a productive life. That's not to say that those who don't have sight are not productive, but I believe you get my point. So without saying too much, I'll call on our very own Dr. Edmund Arthur to take the floor. So while he's speaking, as always, if you have any questions, you can, if it's pressing, you can probably send a message or interrupt or send me a message, and I'll let him or answer it and let him move on. Otherwise, when he's done, then we'll have our Q&A. All right. So, Eddie.
Abby.
Take us away.
Thank you. Finally, I get onto your platform.
Finally. This man has accused me that I've never had him on. I'm having my family members coming on. So I've been vindicated now.
It's about time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and thanks for your audience as well for tuning in. It's an honor to finally be here to talk about a little bit about my background and, eye care in general. So I'm Edmund Arthur. I'm from Ghana. I was actually in Ghana last week.
Yeah, that's when I was accosted and accused.
I just go back to the States. It's a week today, actually.
That's true.
That's true. A week today. Yeah. So I grew up in a small town in the eastern region called Kede. I actually come from a humble beginning, a very low income family. I attended basically from kindergarten to junior high school in Kede. So that's where I did a lot of my teenage years. And then I went to St. Peter's Senior High School. Now it's called Senior High School. Those days, nowadays was called secondary school.
Secondary school.
Yeah, PESCO. At Inkwetia. That was in 2004 when I graduated from junior high school, went to St. Peter's, studied general science, graduated from St. Peter's in 2007. Those days was 3 years. Then, those days we used to stay home 1 year to wait for our results. So came back to Kede, basically taught in my alma mater. I think at the time I was teaching integrated science. So I taught there for a year, waiting for my WASSCE results. I think we were the second batch of the WASSCE. So waiting for my WASSCE results. Basically, I was teaching the junior high school students, basically. So I think during the time our first batch with the BEC and all that, and I remember vividly a little bit. So the results came in by God's grace. It was good. I got medical school in UCC, University of Cape Coast, and then I got biological science, at University of Ghana, Legon. And it's during our time, you have to go do biological science before all those stuff. I don't know if it's still the case.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Then I got Doctor of Optometry at Tech. But the thing is, at the time as a science student, everybody wanted to do medicine. Like that's what we all thought about, and all that. But medical school at University of Cape Coast at the time was fee paying. I remember vividly, it was 4,500 Ghana cedis for the entire year. Yeah, at the time. This was 2008. Yeah, 2007, 2008. This was 2008. So that encompasses your hostel fee, your feeding, and then your tuition and all that. 4,500 cedis at the time. But like I said, I come from a low income family and all that. So I went for the interview and all that. I was admitted. We were 45 students for the second batch because UCC Medical School had just opened for the first batch. So we were the second batch at the time. But there was no money, to go do that fee paying. So, and going to Legon to do biological science, I didn't really like that idea. So
why?
I mean, I felt like it was sort of a long, journey. Not that I didn't believe in myself per se, but it was.
You didn't want to be shocked.
Exactly, it was risky, right? Because if you don't end up in medicine, then you have to do biological science. Not that I'm saying that continuing with biological science to do, the other stuff or the other allied health courses are not, good enough or anything of that sort. But my passion was, was to be in the health field and all that. And if I wasn't going to, if I wasn't going to do medicine, then either I was going to do doctor of pharmacy or, doctor of optometry, basically. But for some reason, I fancied eye care more than pharmaceutics. So I chose doctor of optometry as my first choice at Tech, and then doctor of pharmacy as my second choice. And then, by God's grace, I got into optometry school. So that was how I got into optometry school, basically. So if I there was a financial means to go to UCC, I would have been a medical, I would have gone into medical school instead. But life happens, right? And it is what it is.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
God
So
knows.
Exactly. And it's been a great journey. It's been a great journey. I always say that I think about going into medical school at University of Cape Coast, I wouldn't be here. I wasn't be, where I am today.
Probably.
Like, it was great
Yeah.
because being in optometry school sort of made me think outside the box. When we were in medical school, like, we know the government is going to post you. I don't know if the system is still the same now. Government is going to post you. You're going to get a bungalow, those sort of things. So it makes you relax. It doesn't make you think outside the box. It doesn't, but optometry school is not like that. So when you come from a low income family like I come from, then you have to think outside the box in terms of what are you going to do after school. So it just keeps you on your toes right from the beginning. So it was, was a good experience. So went to optometry school in 2008 to do Doctor of Optometry, 6 years. Graduated in 2014. And so the 6 years that I was in school, supported by my auntie, because like I said, I come from a very low income family, and
God bless her.
God, absolutely. I am so much indebted to her. So I think in my 4th year, 2 years prior to graduating from optometry school, like I realized that I wanted to do more than clinic. I had done my to do a couple of my clinicals over there. I did a couple of my clinicals at St. Dominic's as well, in the Eastern region and all that. So I kind of saw the rudimentary nature of ophthalmic care or eye care in Ghana, and I felt like I wanted more. Like, is that how my life was going to be? Going to the clinic and at some point knowing the kind of treatment and the kind of
it gets mundane.
It gets mundane, exactly, Abigail. It gets mundane. And at that point, I was quite inquisitive. I felt like, I could do more. So I wanted to do grad school, in my 4th year, 2 years removed from graduation. And like I'm saying, there are no PhD programs in Ghana for optometry and vision science. Yeah, for that matter. So that meant I had to look beyond, and like I'm saying, I come from a low income family. So if that was going to be the case, they had to be through scholarship, right? So 2 years from, removed from graduation, I started looking for PhD opportunities outside. I started writing to potential supervisors outside and all that. You write to some, you're going to get response. The other, you're not going to get responses. That's just the way, the way the game works, basically. And so I got connected to my eventual professor at Indiana University in Bloomington, here in the US, School of Optometry. So I was in touch with her, basically it was just God's sense, basically, because at the time, now as a 10-year track assistant professor, like, when students write to me, I'm trying to find out whether they've been active in research, what they've been publishing, that sort of thing. But at the time, I was so green. I was just a novice. I didn't know what I was doing, but she took me under her.
Before you continue, you have to explain some of the terms, like tenure. I don't think it's everyone who understands the system out there. So when you say tenure track, you can explain that.
Oh, okay. So I think the Ghana system is a bit different. So tenure track, like, you're on track to be tenured, basically. So when you are employed by a research one institution, what we call an R1 institution, like the university that I am in, University of Alabama at Birmingham, basically there are 3 aspects that you are being evaluated on. You are evaluated on research, you are evaluated on teaching, and then, to a lesser extent, you are evaluated on service, right? But since it's an R1 institution, it's a research intensive or research heavy institution, it's my research that is really going to carry the weight, at the end. Of course, teaching, but if you are bringing in millions of dollars of NIH funded, I'm not saying that you cannot be you cannot be a good teacher, but I don't worry about most Ghanaians that we are here. We are good teachers. I don't worry about that. But so being on tenure track is a 7-year probation.
7-year probation.
Yes, so it's a 7-year probation. For example, I'm using my situation at University of Alabama at Birmingham as an example. So you are giving 7 years contract. So I started here at 2022, for example, and you are given a 7-year contract that eventually, ends in 2029. So your initial 8 months, it's sort of a grace period before your 10-year clock starts. So for example, I started in January 2022. My 10-year clock started in August, right? Okay. Yeah, 8 months, August. So this year, August is 1 year on my 10-year clock, even though I've been here for sort of a year and a little bit over, a year and a half, basically. So after 5 years, so in August 2027, you can apply to be promoted to an associate professor with tenure. So you are tenured. So, you apply at the end of your 5th year. By the end of your 6th year, you will know the outcome. And if you become tenured to an associate professor, associate professor with tenure, then you are employed for life. Unless you want to move from the university or something of that sort. But if you don't get tenure, then you have 1 more year to figure out, sort of your next steps. So exactly. So that is the 7 years, like briefly. Okay. So coming back to so that is a 10-year track. That is a 10-year track. So if you get tenure, then you become an associate professor with tenure, and then you go on. Yeah. Okay. So I was in touch with my eventual professor at Indiana University Bloomington. Basically, she took me under her wings. I remember in 2012 Christmas. 2012 Christmas, when everybody had gone home to celebrate Christmas, I stayed in school to write the TOEFL. Okay. So I stayed in school in 2012 Christmas to write a TOEFL because I wanted to apply with pending results. A lot of my colleagues at the time did not believe me that you could apply with pending results eventually, because when you come here, when you eventually, God willing, get admitted, you're going to come with your full transcript, right? So it didn't matter that you were in your final year waiting for your final result. You could still apply so far as you're able to, show yourself capable. The US opens up opportunities like that. Yeah. So I wrote a TOEFL in 2012 Christmas, so that by the time school became active in the second semester in 2013, I already had a TOEFL down. Then I continued with the normal school activities. Then when school vacated for the long vacation, now I think the academic calendar is a bit disrupted because of COVID. But during those days, the summer 3 months whatever vacation, I stayed in school in 2013 again, and I prepared for the GRE.
Wow.
So when school resumed,
as a man on fire.
Like I knew I think what helped was at that point, I kind of knew that I wanted more than clinic, and I wanted to be a clinician scientist. I wanted to be in academia. So I kind of knew what I wanted, and so the rest was putting in the work and trusting God that it would eventually pen out well. So by the time school resumed for the first semester in year 6, which is my final semester, I already had a TOEFL, I already had my GRE, I had my transcript, I applied. Long story short, I got admitted in my final semester when I was away doing my clinicals with full scholarship. And then, so when I came back to graduate on the 25th of June in 2014? Okay. Right? Yeah, 2014. 25th of June 2014. When I graduated, I already had, even before I graduated, like I'm saying, I already had the full PhD scholarship. I got the full PhD scholarship from Indiana University. I also got admitted from University of Waterloo in Canada, the School of Optometry over there. And then my current institution now, University of Alabama at Birmingham, I had a pending interview about that, but I wrote to them to cancel that interview. And I've always been a fan of US over Canada. So I wrote to Waterloo as well. And then I came.
The Canadians won't be happy with you.
Yeah. So I graduated on the 24th of June 2014, 25th of June 2014, and then August 8th, just about a little over a month, I was in the US to start my PhD. So I didn't do the national service or the housemanship or whatever stuff, that usually, that's the right, that's the, the nest.
Usual
Yeah, and then you got trajectory, right? So I came, started my PhD here. I did my PhD in 4 years. I graduated in 2018. And then, you know, I was training. I won't go in detail into my research. You know, I'll talk about it when I get to ICARE a little bit. So finished my PhD in 2018. Did 2 postdoctoral fellowships. My first, So the total years of postdoctoral fellowship that I did was about 3.5 years. After my PhD in 2018. So I did my first postdoctoral fellowship with University of Miami in Miami, Florida, Bascom Palmer Eye Institute. And then I did my second postdoctoral fellowship with Brown University at Providence, Rhode Island. And I got the tenure track assistant professor position here at University of Alabama at Birmingham. And I've been here since, basically.
Nice.
So that's a little bit about my background in summary.
That's impressive. You sound like you got to know what you wanted quite early. So that pushed you to, you know, really fight for what the path you wanted to take. And I think that's everybody's prayer. That we'll all know what our passion is, where we are headed. And then we'll know the right activity to engage in to get there. Be able to write your TOEFL before time, write your GRE before time, you know, put all those measures in place just to ensure that you're keeping on that path. That's quite impressive. And we thank God for accelerating things for you and for the intelligence and wisdom that He gave you to come this far.
All by His grace.
Yeah. So yes, so now you're on tenure track in University of Alabama. And so are you doing any clinical work or is purely research?
No, so I do. So like I was saying, like, you know, UAB, University of Alabama at Birmingham is a research one institution. So, you know, there are some institutions in the US that are purely teaching focused, you know, they don't, you know, it's maybe you may find another optometry school or you may find a nursing school or something that are pure, you know, they are just churning out clinicians and, you know, teaching is a focus. So here at UAB, I mean, we are training clinicians, you know, we have dentistry, we have medical school, we have nursing, we have optometry, we have a lot of stuff here. But UAB is a research first institution. So I'm evaluated annually on my research, on my teaching and my service, right? And I always look at it as 50, 40, 10. You know, what I mean is that I make sure that 50% of my effort every day or throughout the week when I'm doing introspection was towards my research. 40% was, you know, towards teaching, and then maybe about 10% is towards service, because that's how you're going to be evaluated, and you know, and that's the truth. You know, when you know how you have to be abreast with a faculty handbook, you have to be abreast with, you know, the kind of institution that you are in and all that. And I know that, you know, the grants that I win, the peer-reviewed publications, most importantly, not, you know, novels and non-peer-reviewed, you know, journal, but the peer-reviewed publications, the conference presentations, you know, that's the most. I mean, the PhD students in my lab that I'm training, you know, the research interest, like serving on other dissertation committees, you know, of other members, you know, of other students. Sorry, in terms of mentorship. And you know, that's the most important. Like, that's very important. I mean, I'm teaching ocular anatomy this semester. I'm a co-course director for ocular anatomy, which, you know, I'll prepare. You know, I'm teaching a couple of topics this September and October. But like my research, I don't like. I take my research very important, because you can be whatever teacher that you are. If your research program here is not being productive, you are not going to get tenured. It's just simple truth, you know. It's just blunt like that, you know, basically. So yeah, so basically, you know, I don't do clinic. I do research. I do clinical research. I don't see patients in a clinic, you know, like I would do in a typical, a typical, optometrist. Basically, I always say that I'm eating more with my PhD than my OD.
Okay.
at the moment. But like, I don't like, it's all about job satisfaction. Like when I was in optometry, when I was, doing my PhD, I wrote the optometry board exams here. There are 3 parts that you have to write. I passed the part 1. I just needed to write a part 2 and a part 3 as well. But like at this point, what is the goal? Like, getting the optometry license here doesn't add anything to my goal of wanting to be an associate professor with tenure.
Okay.
Like, it's just complete distraction. At some point, you got to be focused. You got to know what you want to do. Like, I mean, like it doesn't add anything to, seeing patients in a clinic. We don't add anything to, my goal of, being tenured. Getting NIH grant, getting an R01. Like, I have an R21 from the NIH for my research is on Alzheimer's disease and diabetic retinopathy. Basically, I have 5 grants by God's grace supporting my lab at the moment. I have NIH grant, I have foundation grant, I have pilot grant from UAB and all that. That is what is important. I have an R21, which is sort of a 2-year pilot grant from the NIH. And it's basically that also pays for the tuition and the stipend of my PhD. I have a PhD student in my lab. And then I have a research coordinator as well that I pay as well. So I pay for the tuition and the stipend of my PhD student through, the 5 grants that I have. And then I pay for the research coordinator as well. Like, getting my lab running, that is the most important.
Okay.
Like, you got to know that. Like, if you're going to distract yourself with trying to go get optometry licensure to be a clinician, you have to be promised by your department that is going to count towards your promotion. I don't do anything that is not, when I go to work, I make sure that everything I do every day counts towards my promotion. Other than that, I'm not going to do it. Because at the end of the day, when people evaluate you, they're not going to be shy and they're not going to, have the typical, the Ghanaian culture that we have back home sometimes. No, they're going to tell you in the face that this and this and this is what you needed to do to get tenure, and you didn't do it, and you fall short. So I make sure that what I'm doing every day is in line with that. Now that I have an R21 grant from the NIH by God's grace, the next thing is to get an R01, which is a 5-year grant, like about multiple $1 million grants. When you get that, like your prominence in the university goes to the next level. Because if the NIH, for example, let's say is giving you $2 million over 5 years to do Alzheimer's disease research in my case, then university charges the NIH 48.5%, what we call indirect cost of that $2 million. Okay, for providing me with the space and the lighting and for my lab to function. So if I'm getting $2 million in direct cost, the university is getting like what, close to $1 million. Like, and that is what my dean will
take away
from
the chunk.
Exactly, right. That's what my dean would tap from, my president would tap from, and all that. So like, what I'm trying to say is that you have to know your environment, what is expected of you, and then you have to be narrow focused on that. It is very critical. Other than that, a lot of people put a lot of teaching on themselves in a research one institution. They put a lot of service. What I mean is serving on committees. I serve on committees. I'm on the admissions committee for the PhD program, for the Doctor of Optometry program at the department level. At the university level, I'm on what we call conflict of interest board. At the national level, I'm a fellow of the American Academy of Optometry. So I'm on the American Academy of Optometry board for fellowship. We interview fellowship. Even next month, we'll be going to New Orleans. Like, I do all that. I'm a peer reviewer for almost 12 different peer review journals. Like, I do all that. But not in one instance will I ever allow myself to fall into prioritizing that over writing grants, over publishing a repeat peer-reviewed papers, not novels in non-peer reviewed journals. Over going for conferences and presenting my research, over mentoring my students and making sure that she's becoming a candidate. She's publishing as well, serving on other committees for other students, and then of course making sure that my teaching is it's up to task. So you have to know the institution that you are in, and you have to know what it will take for you to be an associate professor. In my case, with tenure, and just do that, basically. So I collaborate with clinicians because, like I'm saying, my research is in diabetic retinopathy and Alzheimer's. This clinical research. I don't do animal work, basically. I do human clinical research. Yeah, so I think I'm talking too much. In summary, I don't see patients in a clinic, but I have a research coordinator who recruits diabetic patients to participate in my diabetic retinopathy study, who recruits people with Alzheimer's disease to participate in my Alzheimer's disease study. I have clinicians that I work with, some of which I pay, a part of their salary, what we call effort here, from the grants that are funding my research, so that they recruit subjects for me as well.
Great. That's good to know. All right, so I think we'll go now to eye health. I'm sure that's what most of us are waiting for, to get information on how to take care of our eyes. So what do you have to say about that? How can we ensure that we are seeing right, seeing well?
Okay. So I will talk about diabetic retinopathy and diabetic macular edema a little bit, because that's the focus of my research, and then I'll probably talk about refractive error correction a little bit, because in the context of Ghana, basically. So
it'll be good for you to speak English in quotes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because there are some of the terms that those who are not in the medical field might not understand. Yeah, just so that we're all on the same page and we are understanding everything. We can simplify it a bit for us, or explain. You can still mention them, but explain what they mean, so we know what you're talking about.
Yep. I got you, Abby. So basically, okay, so let me talk about diabetic retinopathy, pathology of the retina. When you take the eye, there is a sensitive part at the back of the eye that is responsible for carrying what we call neural impulses to the brain for us to see. It is called the retina. When somebody has diabetes, systemic diabetes manifests in different parts of our body. It can manifest in the leg, the kidney, and in the eyes as well, basically. So when diabetes manifests in the eye, it is called diabetic retinopathy. So the retinopathy of the retina, the pathology of the retina, that occurs as a result of systemic diabetes, basically. Diabetes is really, in simple terms, when you look at it from a vascular perspective, is impaired blood flow, really. That is why if somebody is diabetic and has a wound, it takes a long time for it to heal, because the flow of blood, let me use general terms, that that structure needs, nutrients and all that for it to heal. It's been impeded, basically. So that is why sometimes we don't take care. If somebody can have their leg amputated, if they have diabetes, because blood flow over there is impeded.
That's interesting. Most of the time when we think of diabetes, we are thinking about sugar in the blood. I've never really heard it put this way.
Yeah, it's sugar in the blood, really. It's sugar in the blood. It's, you're looking at, your systemic glucose, being high, or systemic A1C, typically here in the US, greater than 7, basically. But the consequences of that, from the vascular perspective, when I say vascular perspective, when you're looking at it from the small vessel perspective, is that there is impediment of blood flow, like oxygen, nutrients that have to be able to flow within the vessels to get to supply, for metabolism, for these organs, for these tissues, basically. They have been impeded. So therefore, if you're not getting oxygen and nutrients, you don't function as the way you should function, right? That's what I'm saying there. if somebody has like a wound for a long time and the person is diabetic, it can even get gangrenous.
Yeah.
They can even get necrosed. Yeah. And sometimes if you don't take care, you can be amputated because blood has to flow, nutrients have to go there, all these things that are needed for wound healing. It flows through blood to get to that particular site. But if there is impediment with blood flow, because from the vascular perspective, vasculopathy, pathology of the vascular, of the vessels basically is occurring, then you're having all these issues. So let's get it fundamentally like that. Like, yes, it is high glucose, in the blood, but the consequences of that is impaired blood flow because the vessels that the blood has to, flow within, the integrity of the vessels is compromised, basically. So that is what happens in the eye as well, because the eye is an extension to systemic health. There are a lot of things you can see in the eye if you know what you're looking for. The eye is the only part of the body that you can see non-invasively retinal vessels. I mean, vessels that you can infer you can infer systemic health from. Okay, what I'm trying to say is that the eye is when you look at the eye, the black part of the eye, which is called, the pupil, basically, the reason why it's black is because of, melanocytes, because of melanin, basically. We have the iris over there, which contains a lot of, melanocytes. Melanocytes are cells that produce melanin, so it's a coloration of, it's a melanin that is being produced, that is why we have the dark part over there, because, some people have different colorations over there. They have less pigmentation and all that, right? Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is that there are muscles that control that black part. When you look at that dark part, there is a hole inside. Okay. That hole, when you get into the light, it constricts. It's called a pupil. It constricts. When you get into the dark, it dilates for more light to enter so that you can see. When you get into the light, it constricts to reduce the amount of light that gets into the retina, right, to protect it. Now, what I'm trying to say is that is a true aperture, because beyond that aperture, or what I'm calling the pupil, we have a very clear structure called the lens. Very clear structure. Very transparent structure, because it has to be transparent, right? Other than that, you're not going to see. You're going to have, an opacity. When that lens becomes opaque, that is what we call cataract. Okay. So if you heard of cataract, it is because the crystalline lens, either through normal aging or through high UV exposure or trauma or diabetes, can even cause that. Has become opaque or become less clearer. So you need to take that out and replace it with what we call an intraocular lens, which is more of an artificial clear crystalline lens. Now, beyond that, we have a jelly-like part called the vitreous, and then you get to the retina, right? Because the light has to pass through all these transparent structures to get to the retina. The retina is a photosensitive part. It carries neural impulses to the brain. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that is a true aperture. It's just like having a small hole to a dark room. Okay. When you shine light into it, you're going to see everything in it, right? And that is exactly how the eye is. So let's say you have a pinhole camera. Those days, as senior high school, pinhole camera, integrated science and all that. When you shine light into the pinhole camera, you're going to see all that is within the pinhole camera. And that is what, as optometry, that's what we do. So when you go to the eye clinic, for example, we have a drop, we have a dilating drop, for example, called tropicamide. It's other people can use atropine. We have other things that cyclopentolate. I won't go into the details of that. But what I'm trying to say is that we have a drop that when we instill into the eye, it opens the pupil up so that we can shine light into it. So I'm saying that is a true aperture. That when you shine light into that, for lack of a better word, that dark room, you're going to see everything in it. So as an optometrist, when you shine light through that dark aperture into that, through that aperture into that dark room, you're going to see vessels. You're going to see, it's beautiful, all that over there, and there is no part of.
Is that Is that the light that is shone into the eye when you go to see the optometrist? Is this thing
Yes.
that they hold? And
Yes.
maybe
So
okay.
yes. So there, one of the things that the people we do as optometrists, when you go there, they look at your pupillary reaction. So they shine light quickly from here, from one eye to the other. That is pupillary reaction. Because like I'm saying, when you get into the light, your pupil has to constrict, right? But this light that I'm talking about, they bring a particular instrument, get close to you a little bit, trying to look into your eye as if they are looking into your soul.
Your soul. Exactly.
Right? That is called direct ophthalmoscopy. That's what I'm talking about. So when you dilate, when I say dilate, like you install the eye drop to open up the aperture, it even becomes much easier. So you can, when you see the vessels and everything. So what I'm trying to say is that you can tell the integrity of the vessels when you shine light into that, through that aperture. And the vessels within the eye, it is just an extension of systemic health. So the integrity of the vessels within the eye can tell you a lot about the health of a particular person, such that if somebody is hypertensive, you can tell by looking at the eye, because it will have consequences in the eye. This
is really interesting, because actually the passage I took the topic from in the Bible says that if your eye is healthy, and your body will also be healthy.
True.
God is such an intelligent creator.
Absolutely.
Please go on.
No, true. If your eye is healthy, if your eye is healthy, your systemic health is healthy. Because if somebody has hyperlipidemia, or what other people will call hypercholesteremia, like high, cholesterol, high lipid concentration, you can tell by looking at the eye, by looking into the eyes. If somebody is likely to suffer from a clot that will lead to stroke, you can tell by looking at the eye. Yeah, because if you look into the eye, okay, and like in the case of hypercholesteremia or hyperlipidemia, there are signs of high lipid around the vessels that you can tell. If you look into the eye and there is a clot, okay, blocking the flow of blood, looking at the way the retina appears, you can tell. And if there is a clot in the eye, the likelihood that there are clots in other parts of the body is also high. So you can refer to your primary care physician, or in Ghana, the medical doctor for more assessment.
Yeah.
Right. If somebody has high cholesteremia or high lipidemia, then you can also refer to a primary care physician, right? Basically, if somebody is hypertensive,
so an optometrist is able to detect all these things.
Yes.
If they are looking out for them.
Yes, if they know what they're looking for. It all depends on the level of experience. Okay, and ideally, an optometrist has to do a dilated fundus examination, irrespective of the visit. To be able to see some of these things. When I say dilated fundus examination, like dropping the eye, giving the eye drop in the eye, and so that you have the aperture opens up for you to see. Because somebody may come to the eye clinic with just refractive error, they may need refractive error issue, but the issue may be as a result of, they may not only need glasses, but they may have some systemic health that if you don't do a dilated fundus examination, or you just focus on just prescribing the contact lens or the glasses, then you're going to miss all that. So doing a dilated fundus examination as part of your routine examination is very, very, very critical. So the same thing, if somebody is hypertensive, the way the vessels are arteriosclerosed, you can tell. Like the way the vessels in the retina are arteriosclerosed, when you've seen vessels in the retina for a very long time, you know how normal vasculature looks like, and you know how arteriosclerosed vessels look like. So you can tell that this person is hypertensive. And then you can, most optometrists will have maybe a registered nurse around or something that can measure the person's, blood pressure, or you can refer and all that. The same with diabetes. If somebody has systemic diabetes, see, the truth is that some people don't even know that they have diabetes until they visit their optometrist.
Okay.
Because, yeah, Abby, because sometimes, diabetes fluctuations in your sugar can cause fluctuations in your vision. Because like I'm saying, diabetes can cause cataract or what we call lens changes. Okay. So somebody's, okay, so the cataract is the lens that I talked about. I think in Chi they call it a tear or something. Yeah, if I'm saying it right. But it's basically, like after the aperture, the transparent crystalline lens that I was talking about, it can, when you have diabetes, there is clouding, there is, because you have hyper glycemia, you have, let's go back to osmosis in those days, right? So a high concentration osmosis and diffusion, right? Like senior high school. So have a high concentration of sugar within the lens because of the position of sugar within the lens will imbibe water into the lens, right? And when it imbibes water into the lens, that is, anytime water gets into a place, into a transparent environment, it's going to affect the transparent, it's going to cause some form of cloudiness. Basically, it's that particular structure is not going to be as transparent as it used to be, and you need very transparent structures when it comes to the optics of the eye, basically. So what I'm trying to say is that there are people who just go to the clinic because they have fluctuations in their vision, or their fluctuation in their sugar is causing fluctuations in their vision because of these phenomenon of cataract caused by diabetes that I'm explaining to you. So when you go see your optometrist, the person who is going to the clinic doesn't even know that, the person has systemic diabetes. You do a dilated fundus examination and then you see, boom, microaneurysms. Like, what I mean is, like, in layman words, blood at the back of the eye, like leaking blood. The vessels are leaking blood. They are like oozing blood. Let me put it that way, which is not typical.
Yeah.
Right? Because the vasculature of the vessel has to be intact and all that. But like I was telling you initially, apart from diabetes, yeah, like it's a small vessel disease. So the integrity of the vessels are being impeded, basically. Right. So somebody may, the person is going to see their optometrist thinking that, oh, I need some glasses because my vision is, has gone down, blah, blah, blah. Then you do a dilated fundus examination and then you see all this leaking of blood at the back of the eye. This person has diabetes. The person may not even know. So now you are the person who, depending on the setup of that particular clinic, some optometrists work with ophthalmologists in conjunction or registered nurses in conjunction and all that. So, you can do, a fasting blood sugar or an A1C measurement quickly to see the person's systemic glucose or A1C level at that point, or you can refer, basically. So it all depends on how the setup is. But what I'm trying to say is that unless you get to the root cause of the systemic diabetes, like prescribing glasses for the person is not really going to do anything. Because there is, like I'm saying, there is leaking of blood at the back of the eye. If the person doesn't start taking, whatever, diabetic medication, whether it's metformin or whatever, to bring the systemic A1C or the systemic glucose down, you can prescribe glasses for the person today. When they start taking their medication and their glucose, their systemic glucose level change, the glass power, the power of the glasses is going to change. That glass is not going to be useful to them anymore. So it's very critical that in that case, you make sure that they manage their systemic diabetes or their systemic glucose or their systemic A1C. When that is controlled, the symptom that you are seeing in the eye becomes like it's most of the time it resolves to some extent. Because when somebody has, all this leaking of blood and all that, unless the person is having what we call neovascularization or edema is swelling, fluid accumulation. Neovascularization is new vessels that are growing, right? That we have some, some injection that we give within the eye, or some what we call pan-photocoagulation. We use laser to burn those vessels that are oozing blood. There's really nothing that you can do. You just have to monitor. So I mean, long story short, what I'm trying to say is that diabetes has an effect on your vision. And as an optometrist, if somebody comes to my clinic and I do a dilated fundus examination and I see signs of diabetes in the eye, it is critical not to hurry up to just prescribe glasses for the person, because that glasses is not going to be useful to the person in a week's time. It is critical that I refer the person to a primary care physician or a medical doctor to make sure that their diabetes is managed, have the diabetes controlled, and come back to me. So here you have co-management of that particular patient. Basically, other than that, like, if you just rush to just prescribe glasses, it's not going to help the person, And then, so the primary care physician is managing the systemic diabetes, and you, the optometrist, is making sure that as the systemic, diabetes is being controlled, whatever you saw within the eye is also being resolved gradually. So that is a co-management. That is
So apart from diabetes, what else affects the eye?
I mean, there are a lot. So I talked about cataract. You can even tell if somebody has HIV by looking into the eye,
and that also affects the vision.
Okay, so it depends on the state. Early HIV may not, but late stage, when the condition has been there for a while and it's not been managed, or the person is not aware, it causes edema and all that, and that can affect the person's the person's vision. We call it cytomegalovirus retinopathy, basically. So it depends on the stage. So you can tell whether somebody has HIV by looking into the eye. Like I'm saying, I talked about hypertension, I talked about diabetes, I talked about cataracts. You can even tell. I can see a hand up.
Yes, Doc, please go on.
Yes. All that you have said, very interesting. I have just had surgery on my left eye, and it's because I had what the doctor said, vitreous hemorrhage and retinal detachment. So each time I went, first question, are you diabetic? I'm not. Are you hypertensive? I'm not. And because of that, we did all kinds of tests. They took me through all kinds of tests. And I'm not diabetic, I'm not hypertensive. So conclusion was that, you must have hit your head against something. And well, of course, I can't remember. Maybe it happened a long time ago. Is that a correct diagnosis they've made? That I hit my head?
I think you mentioned trauma at the beginning.
Oh, you did? Okay, I didn't get that.
I mean, vitreous detachment can happen as a result of trauma, basically. The reason why they were asking about diabetes and all that is also, very important, because when you have the new vessels, like I'm saying, if diabetes in the eye progress, to a later stage, new vessels grow, because like I was saying, diabetes is impediment of oxygen. So the body tries to create new vessels to supply oxygen. But the only thing is that these new vessels are not strong enough. So the new vessels that grow, they grow into a part of the eye. They say you have vitreous detachment called a vitreous. So those new vessels can pull on the vitreous for the vitreous to detach from the retina. The vitreous is just a jelly-like fluid in the middle of the eye that is just there to make sure that the pressure within the eye is kept, intact. Because the retina is just kept intact to the scleral part, only because of the vitreous, and then we have another clear fluid in front of the eye called the aqueous. So, I mean, the answer to your question, if they did Victor, I can see the hand up again. Oh, okay. So if they did, all the initial checks to make sure that you don't have diabetes and all that, which absolutely can lead to vitreous detachment, and then eventually retinal detachment. Then trauma is a possible cause. Another possible cause is that people just get myopic over time because of work culture now. Like, apart from history of trauma, people just get myopic over time. What I'm trying to say with myopic is that people get short-sighted over time. Like, for example, like all my work, because of economics right now, like all my work is computer, this laptop, that, like we barely do a lot of, external activities like we used to do, those days. So with age, with the way our work has been now, especially most of us who do a lot of indoor work and all that, sitting by the computer and all that, you get myopic over time. What I mean is that you become short-sighted, like your eye elongates. So for example, I just started using, I've realized I have some minus power a little bit for myself, because I was hyperopic.
Constantly behind the PC.
A lot of work behind the PC. So that can also cause elongation of the eye with that particular work lifestyle, and that can also lead to some form of vitreous detachment, that can retinal detachment, but that is on the lower side. But trauma is more of a more possible possibility, if diabetes is not there.
Well, thank you very much. Now the other complications coming. Cataract, glaucoma has been there for a while. Now cataract is coming on both eyes, and so the vision is still not clear yet. But my right eye is very clear. That's what I use.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but like cataract is a normal occurrence. Like everybody has different form of cataract, like different amounts of cataract. Strictly by definition, cataract, it's a change in the transparency of the lens, the crystalline lens. Basically, strictly by definition. So like the way the transparency or the clarity of my lens was at birth is not the way it is now. So I have some form of cataract. It's just that I still have some usable vision. So your environment, somebody who, for example, has systemic diabetes is more likely to, have cataract developing earlier. Somebody Yeah, because like I was explaining, initially with the dynamics of, how osmosis and all, because I have a hyperglycemic environment within the lens and all that, I can imbibe water. Somebody who grew up, for example, in the northern part of Ghana, where there is a lot of UV rays, without using protective sunglasses and all that. Yes, likely will develop cataract earlier than somebody who grew up in the southern part of Ghana. So all those environmental factors and systemic health, affect, development of cataracts. And another factor is just aging.
Yes.
Like with aging, everybody's lens becomes a bit cloudy. It's just, what were you exposed to growing up? How is your system? How is your general body health? Like all that, like all fits in. But with normal aging, everybody loves cataract. So cataract is not, it's not a disease. Let me put it that way. It's a normal occurrence.
Okay. I'm 78, and I'm always on the laptop, my computer.
Exactly. So all those things that I was saying, right, it fits in here, right? All those things are possibilities. But no ophthalmologist will touch both eyes. Now that they say you have cataract in both eyes, they will make sure that your intraocular pressure is controlled. Before they try to, because you said you have glaucoma as well, lurking around. Before they try to touch, they do the cataract surgery altogether. But even if after they make sure that your intraocular pressure or your IOP is controlled, they will always do one eye first. Make sure that you are healed. Make sure that it went well, before they come to the other eye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Sudo. So my question before I throw it to the audience I mean, open up the space of the audience. What's the difference between an optometrist and an ophthalmologist?
Okay, that's a very good question. Okay, so let me answer it simply. Ophthalmologists are eye surgeons, okay?
Okay.
They're eye surgeons. Typically, ophthalmologists are medical doctors.
Okay.
Who have, in Ghana, when you finish 6-year medical school and you do your housemanship, you're a doctor, right? Like the US is different, right? So in the US, medical school, optometry school, pharmacy school, whatever, like you have to do a 4-year undergrad. Okay. Some even add masters to it to make themselves competitive. Okay. So some students that I have, like, in optometry school, for example, some of them you already have masters, to make them competitive. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that these are individuals who they did ophthalmologist. They did in the US. Let me use the US standard. So they did 4 years or plus masters, undergrad, then they went to medical school for 4 years. Here in the US, when you go to medical school for 4 years, you are not a doctor. You have to do residency. Okay. So after the 4 years medical school, they went into residency. They went into ophthalmology residency for 3 years. And then after the 3 years, they did a fellowship in retina, prosthesis, glaucoma, whatever. So they have a specialization, cornea, they have a specialization over there. So the residency plus fellowship is about 5 years after the medical school. Okay, so these are individuals that are highly, highly, highly specialized. So when you come into the US healthcare system, you don't see them until you need a highly specialized surgery. Okay, so all the initial primary eye care stuff, from diagnosing of minor stuff, all those things, like, diabetic retinopathy that I'm talking about, all those things, anterior segment stuff. I mean, what I mean in layman words is like things like refractive error, the cornea stuff, the tear stuff, retinal, some common retinal diseases, allergies, and all those things. An ophthalmologist doesn't have time, like, it's the optometrist. So optometrists are individuals, okay? Again, I'm using the US standard. They went to undergrad 4 years plus masters or whatever. Then they came to optometry school for 4 years. They are not trained in highly specialized surgery. They do some form of minimally invasive surgery, like, LASIK for refractive error and, some minimal stuff. But purely, these are primary eye care. And then after the 4 years optometry school, they go to do residency, a year or two residency, like in ocular disease, neurooptometry, and what have you. So when you come into the US in the eye care system, all the initial stuff, all the initial primary eye care stuff that are being done are done by the optometrist. You only see the ophthalmologist when you need specialized care. Because again, these are individuals that are highly trained, so they don't have time to come and treat allergies or uveitis or common, retinal conditions or common like dry eye and those things. But if you need highly specialized glaucoma services, they are there. If you need highly specialized, diabetic retinopathy services, they are there. Diabetic macular edema services, they are there. Highly specialized, strabismus, or in Ghana, in local terms, my friend is saying, "Michelle baby," correction. They are there.
Okay. The cross eye.
The cross eye, Okay. We call it strabismus. They are there. So these are highly specialized things that they do. But in Ghana, most ophthalmologists are not true ophthalmologists. Let me put it that way. Like, according to the US standard, like most of them are cataract surgeons. They went to medical school and then they are surgeons. They do it in medical school. You are trained in surgery, so they can do cataract surgery, right? And and then of course that counts with ophthalmic. They can do ophthalmic care as well and all that. But if you are using the US standard, like they don't have specialization in an area, like, in glaucoma or prostasis or strabismus or, retina stuff. Like, they are not retina specialists or something, They are just more of a general thing that are being tailored to the African need. Because a lot of the stuff that you see in Ghana, cataract and whatever. So in Ghana, you can see an ophthalmologist treating allergic conjunctivitis, like really, or you can see an ophthalmologist treating dry eye, like really. There are more specialized things that if you knew how to do it, you would do it. You won't worry yourself with these small stuff. Everybody can do that. The optometrist can do that. The ophthalmic nurse can do that in Ghana and all that. So purely in the sense of its word, ophthalmologists are purely eye surgeons. Optometrists are primary eye care doctors.
So whenever you're having any problem with your eye, it's advisable to go to the optometrist first.
Yes.
To get the primary care. Then
to get a primary care.
There's a need for a referral. They
will send you to an ophthalmologist. Yep.
Great. That's good to know.
Yep.
All right. So at this point, I think I'll open the floor for more questions. All right, Isaac. Go on.
Hello. Good evening, Abigail. Good evening, Doc. I've really enjoyed your presentation talk so far, and I appreciate how you are dynamic in your delivery. I'll go straight to my questions. So I'm an IT person. I'm a front-end engineer, to be specific, and I spend a lot of time behind the computer every single day. I have a pair of glasses I'm wearing, blue light filter, and it has lenses for fixing astigmatism and photochromic and all. So I got this because I'm always behind the computer and I'm always coding. But I want to know if there are other things I can do to make it more safer for me, and if there are other risks I should be aware of with the nature of my work.
Yeah, so we have something called the 20-10 rule. For every 20 minutes that you look at your computer, look away, blink for 10 seconds, refresh your eyes, and then come back.
You probably have to set an alarm for this.
That's on the lighter side. Like, but when you have a feel for it, when you have a feel for it, like when you look at the computer for a little bit,
But sometimes, you get so engrossed in something you're watching, you might forget.
True. But that is another habit you can inculcate, because when you look at a computer for a very long time, your eyes are going to dry up. And then, you can experience some dryness of the eye. You can experience some headaches, and all that. So for every 20 minutes, you can look away for about 10 seconds, blink, look at a distant, object, refresh your eyes by blinking a little bit before you come back. But in terms of the prescription that they've given you, that's is on point. They've given you, I don't know if it has anti-reflective coating.
No, it doesn't have anti-reflective coating, so I should get that.
Yeah, you need to get anti-reflective coating on it. You need to get anti-reflective coating on it, because the anti-reflective coating, like by the name, is anti-reflective, so it reflects some of the light from the screen away, so that it reduces the amount of light that gets into your eyes, and that will reduce eye fatigue and all that. The photochromic is fine. When you go out, in the sun, it becomes dark. When you come, inside in a room environment like this, it clears up. When it's transition lens, it's even better, because the transition becomes better. The change from light to dark, from outside to inside, becomes even much better than the photochromic. But purely for the computer work that you do, in order to reduce, the possibility for what we call computer vision syndrome, you need to get anti-reflective coating on the lens. By all means, there is some little plus addition that they've put into the lens to reduce, the amount of accommodation that you are using for your near work. but getting anti-reflective coating on top of that will really be beneficial, because that will reduce the glare, the amount of light coming into your eyes and all that. And in addition to that, please, if you can, try to inculcate the habit of, look away a little bit after working. That will be helpful. But we can't always do that. So the anti-reflective coating on top of that will really help you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doc.
You're welcome.
Thank you too, Isaac. All right. Any more questions from our audience? Dr. Arthur is here for you, so any questions about the health of your eyes, please feel free, speak up or raise your hand, and you'll be allowed to talk. Everybody is silent.
Okay, one of the things you talked about was the dilation of the eye.
Mm-hmm.
And the time I was visiting the eye clinic in Kolebu, each time they did that, I sort of felt funny. Sometimes I have to hold things before I walk properly. And is that the feeling one should always have? The dilation?
No, not really. It's, there are things that ideally should be done, before dilation. And one of the critical things that need to be done is you need to make sure one has the person eating. That is number one. Two, you need to have an idea of the person's systolic BP. So the person's systolic blood pressure or systemic blood pressure is also very important. Okay. Because the dilating agents that we use, it has effects on what we call depending on the type of dilating agents, commonly they use the atropine or the cyclopentolate. It has what we call, it has an effect on the parasympathetic nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system controls constriction of vessels and all that. Yeah. And for somebody who has, if somebody has, is a BP, has high blood pressure, then you want to be very careful, because the drops that you are putting on the eye can get systemic.
Okay.
Can get systemic. So you have to make sure, you have to measure the blood pressure of the person, make sure that the blood pressure is, is on the, is on the low or average. Basically make sure that the person's glucose is the person has eaten as well, before you do that. But it's usually when you have fluctuations in blood pressure after dilating, because the person probably didn't measure the blood pressure and didn't know the person's systemic glucose, you can have funny feelings like that. Because the drop gets systemic. But ideally, the doctor should measure the systemic blood pressure before you dilate. You need to know if the blood pressure is up. You need to bring it down before you dilate. Yeah.
Doc, do they check your blood pressure, or they just go ahead and
No, they don't.
Most of it.
So now when you go, you have to insist. Tell them that you've been educated. So now they need to check before they do the dilation.
Yeah. One other, after the surgery, one other, they told me my nerves are weak. Would there be any correction for that?
So when they say your nerves, like, what do they mean? Are they talking about the glaucoma? Is that what they mean? Is that what they're referring to?
The nerves in the eye.
The nerves in the eye. They told you that your nerves in the eye are weak.
Yes.
Okay. So probably they're referring to the glaucoma, because you mentioned the
yeah.
Okay. You mentioned the high intraocular pressure. Okay. Glaucoma.
Yes.
Okay. Let me explain it in layman's terms, like in simple terms. There, in front of the eye, where you see the black part, okay, there is a covering over it. It's called a cornea.
Yes.
but it's very transparent. So that is why you are seeing the black or the iris. But there is a covering, like when you come to the clinic and we sit under our what we call a slit lamp microscope, what you put your chin on and your forehead on when you come and visit us.
Yes.
Like we're able to examine it. So there is a cornea. Okay. There is a space between the cornea and that black part.
Okay.
A small space. There is an angle over there. Now, so that black part is what I'm referring to as the iris. Now, just behind the iris, we have what we call the ciliary body. Sorry for the terms, but I don't know.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. So it's responsible for producing fluid called the aqueous humor. That's ciliary body. Okay. It's responsible for producing fluid called the aqueous humor. Why is it important? Because the front part of the eye is avascular. And it has to be avascular because it has to be transparent. Anytime there is blood anywhere or vessels anywhere, they cause opacity. So that is why nature has designed it in that way, for it to be avascular. But still, they need nutrients and oxygen, for metabolism. So nature has made it in such a way that the ciliary body produces this fluid called aqueous humor. The aqueous humor drains from that ciliary body, passes along the iris, and goes through to bath the cornea, the posterior part of the cornea, and escape through that angle. We call it the trabecular meshwork or the Schlemm's canal. Escapes and gets into systemic circulation. Okay. So ideally, the rate of production should be equivalent to the rate of outflow. But when there is a perturbation in that mechanism, then you're going to have buildup of fluid. So let's say that you have more production, but there is a blockage or the angle is narrow or whatever be the case, then you're going to have more production than outflow. And then there is a buildup of, buildup of aqueous fluid, aqueous fluid, then it should be drained, and then you have increase in intraocular pressure. So typically, when you come to the clinic, we measure your, what we call your IOP or your increase in intraocular pressure, and usually you should have anything above 20 is not good.
20.
Yeah, anything above, if you can get it around 16 millimeters of mercury, that is great.
Okay.
But anything, getting to 20 and above is usually not. It's usually
what should be the lowest?
What do you say?
What should be the lowest?
So averagely around 16 millimeters of mercury is
16.
good. 16, 1/6.
Okay.
1/6. There is pressure within the eye. Like the eye needs pressure to maintain the structures intact. We just don't want it to be too much. And in glaucoma, one possible mechanism that I'm explaining, which is the intraocular pressure perspective, is you have buildup of intraocular pressure. When you have buildup of intraocular pressure, that has a mechanic insult or mechanic effect on the nerves at the back of the eye, the retina, which is responsible for propagating neural impulses, to the brain. So it's just like having buildup of pressure over time. So there is mechanic insult to those nerves, and those nerves gradually die off. So that's from the intraocular pressure perspective, basically. But the unfortunate thing is that when neurons die, you cannot regenerate them.
You cannot regenerate.
As at now, in science, that's where we are. But that is a little bit about glaucoma, from the intraocular perspective. There are other perspectives, that I can talk about, but the common explanation is the intraocular pressure perspective, basically. So if they say the neurons, they are referring to your optic nerve, because of the the exposure to high intraocular pressure over time. And in that way, the only thing you can do is bring the intraocular pressure down through anti-glaucoma drugs, timolol and what have you.
Right. That's what I now I noticed between 9 and 13 millimeter mercury.
That's great.
Okay.
That's perfect.
That's my last question.
Oh, you can ask more. Don't worry.
Well, when somebody's hand has been up. So.
Yes, I think Isaac, you
it's
can go
Isaac
on.
again.
Yeah.
Isaac
Okay. It seems like only people asking the questions.
Yeah.
No problem.
Anyway.
I'm sure there are others who wanted to ask, but they're shy. So go ahead and do that for them.
So I mentioned that I also have astigmatism, and when I went to the eye clinic the first time and I was diagnosed of this, the doctor recommended two possible solutions. Either I get a pair of glasses or I do a LASIK eye surgery. And from how he described the LASIK eye surgery, it involves targeted laser focused into the eye to even out the iris so that
The cornea.
the cornea, so that it's not I can see without the glare. I want to find out how safe that is, and if there are any dangers to consider if you're going to do LASIK eye surgery in today's world.
Yeah, I mean, one critical effect of LASIK is post-surgical dry eye. Very, very, very critical. Like if you don't have enough TFM, you have to truly assess to know the TFM quality of your patient before you go in to do laser surgery, because one LASIK on its own, induces dry eye effect, and like the post-surgical dry eye inducement that comes as a result of LASIK, it's terrible. Like you don't want to be on steroids or topical steroids or tears after LASIK surgery. Basically, I'm not condemning LASIK surgery, but because you asked the question of what are the effects of LASIK surgery. If the person doesn't have good TFM quality and the person undergoes LASIK surgery, so it's very important that the optometrist that's a very good assessment of your TFM quality before the person refers you to an ophthalmologist to go do LASIK surgery. Because if your TFM quality is not intact and you go do LASIK surgery, you're going to have post-surgical dry eye with irritation and dryness and all that.
And is it permanent?
Yeah,
Wow.
You don't want that. If the TFM quality is not good, you don't want that. That's what I'm saying. That so that's what I refer that you don't want to be on eye drops, to curb that for the rest of your life. Basically. But if your TFM quality is good, LASIK is safe. Basically. But I will always advise my patients to just wear glasses. There is nothing wrong with wearing glasses. In Ghana, because of the environment and the dust and all that, I don't trust contact lenses, for you to wear contact lenses because of the dust and the environment and the hygiene that comes with being able to manage contact lens wear properly. And the expertise on the part of the patient to be able to take it out and put it in and make sure that the person is hygienic and all that. I don't trust that. Because if you're not able to do that well, then that is going to cause another cornea infection that you don't want altogether. Because I don't know, like there are a few cornea specialists in Ghana. Like you may not even trust whether they can do a cornea transplant properly. So you don't want to get there. Basically, so I won't trust a lot of contact lenses practice basically, but wearing glasses doesn't hurt, and if like I'm saying, if your TFM quality is intact, then you can go for a laser surgery, but your optometrists have to take time, not because the laser surgery is very quick, not because a lot of these individuals, in quote, they just want to, they want the surgery, or maybe they're looking at the remuneration aspect or something. So there has to be a detailed TFM assessment to make sure that your TFM quality is intact before you do laser surgery. Other than that, it induces post post-surgical dry eye that causes depression and for people, because dry eye is irritating, like, it's burning, it's, so you have to make sure that your tear film is intact before you do that.
Okay. Thank you. I think I will stick with the glasses for now.
Okay. Thanks again for your question. So someone has asked a question in the chat. He says, thank you, Dr. Edmund, for your excellent in-depth presentation. With your extensive experience and exposure, what plans do you have for Ghana in extending your knowledge to other experts and students here?
I was just going
Very
to
important question. Thank you so much, Gerald.
That's a very good question, Gerald. Thank you. So first of all, I have the Edmund Arthur Graduate School, scholarship fund that, by God's grace, with all humility, that was established at K University, for optometry students who are interested in graduate school in the vision sciences in the US. Basically, so it's a 5-year, $10,000 scholarship. And the goal is to support students in their application fees and their visa fees and their CVs fees, at least the initial stuff, because like I went through ways that I know how it feels. So the idea is that every year, I will give tech $2,000 for 5 years, to add up to $10,000. And the goal is to support 3 students from the department who are interested in coming to the US specifically for the PhD program in vision science. And most of these students are, they don't, maybe the average application fee is about $75. I don't know the dollar now. It's 11 cities, right? So when you like that's yeah, so that's a lot, like for how many, and these being on the admissions committee, like, it's very competitive. Like we had 45 applications for the PhD program for those who just came, and we admitted only 4. So it's very competitive. So you need to apply, you need to cast your net wide. So the idea is to pay for application fees for 2 schools for each of these students. And then to pay for, if they get admitted, to pay for the visa fees, and then for the US to pay for the CVs fee as well. So that's roughly adds up to about $2,000 for these 3 students. And so that is one that with all humility that I've offered for tech. And I try as much as possible. This year at UAB School of Optometry, we have 4 Ghanaians that were admitted. I'm not going to say that I'm responsible for all of them, but I took some of them, under my tutelage. And if a student responds to me, writes an email to me, and I look at the content of the email and all that, and I see that this person is really will really fit graduate school, I respond to the email, read through their personal statement, try to edit it, provide some comments, read through their go through their CV and all that, to help. So those are some of the things. And like I'm looking for one more student in my lab, so hopefully it becomes a Ghanaian. So those are some of the minor contributions that I say that I'm paving for it as well.
Okay, so he's added on. He says, more so, what do you think experts in Ghana are not doing right, or advising patients in the wrong way, or what can they be doing better to help patients?
Experts in Ghana are not doing right. Like, that's
that's a very sensitive.
That's a
sensitive question,
right?
You want to be careful how you answer that.
Yeah, I want to be careful how I answer that. I would say they're not doing right.
Doc, my little experience at Kolebu, I think that the system is not treating them well. Maybe that's why we are not also getting the
good services.
You see, if the system were treating them right, I'm sure we'll also be happy with the services.
I agree. I was in Ghana for 3 weeks. Just last week I was in Ghana and I visited one of my junior colleagues. He he's in a private practice now, and like it's if you're in a private practice, you have the sales of spectacles, contact lenses, those things, consultation fee, and all those things that is funding you. So I'm talking about real practicalities on the ground. So there are a lot of things that are going to influence somebody's mode of practice, how the person quickly wants to make sure that no matter the visits, you have to get glasses or buy something or buy an eye drop or get something, because it's at the end of the day, it's business too, So it's difficult. It's difficult answering that.
There's so many factors.
There are so many factors that goes into it. I think there is another hand from Isaac.
Isaac.
Yeah, Doc, I appreciate the information you shared on your journey, and it's very evident from what you said that you were focused and you knew what you wanted. But I'm also curious to know, throughout your whole journey, how has your faith journey been like? It seems to me right now that it's still intact and you're still keeping the faith and you're still running the race. But I want to know if there were times when it was difficult, or if there were times when there was a lot of pressure because of particular points of views you held because of your faith, and how you navigated through those waters.
Yeah. I mean, I come from a low-income family. Like my dad is at the time was a driver. My mom at the time didn't work, so it can only be God to by God's grace to get to this point. But also, I mean, personally, like you always have to be aware of your environment. I'm a Christian, and like without God, like none of these will be possible. Like, and I'm a staunch Christian. I mean, I think, and I'll always continue to be a Christian. But when you are in the US, that especially in this particular climate, you have to be very careful. I mean, especially at this point where I'm a faculty member, like I'll always be a Christian. I hold my values. I mean, I will say that the only way that I got through my PhD was my faith in God. Because the PhD journey for me, let me use the PhD journey. The PhD journey for me was a tough one. I had a very, very strong personality supervisor. And, the PhD program is your supervisor. If you're going to be happy, it's your supervisor. If you're going to be sad, it's your supervisor. If you're going to be frustrated, it's your supervisor. Your supervisor is everything, because it doesn't even matter the other people on the committee. He or she is a chairperson or the chairwoman of that committee, and it controls basically your destiny for that period of time. And there were times that I'll come home from the lab. I used to sleep in the lab sometime. But there were times that I'll come home from my PhD and I just sob a little bit.
Deflated.
Because some of the experiments are not going to go the way you want it to go, after putting in all the work for hours, for weeks, for months, you've been working on something, and then the hypothesis is not proving right, you know, and all that. So for me, through those days, it was speaking in tongues that got me through. Sometimes from the lab when I'm coming home, late at night, I would just be speaking in tongues I didn't have a car, I didn't drive and all that. I lived on campus. So sometimes when I'm walking at night at dawn, like I said, I used to sleep in the lab sometimes, walking in the cold in Indiana, very cold state, coming back to my apartment, just speaking in tongues and singing. Nobody's around, so I could speak in tongues and blow as loud as I wanted. And by the time that I get home, no matter the anxiety and the frustration I was feeling in the lab, I will be calm.
Wow.
So for me, those are some of the things that got me through my PhD. It was speaking in tongues and worship, really. The PhD is, man, it's what it is. But it was, for me, it was worship and speaking in tongues. That got me through my PhD. Because that calmed me in terms of a lot of anxiety and disappointment and all that. After speaking in tongues and worshiping a little bit, I'll be fine to now continue again. So that's what got me through. But in terms of my opinion on all the things that are happening in my society now, you have to be wise. The Bible even tells us to be wise as the serpent. So I'm not going to go out there and show whatever, like fight or whatever, my certain views are going to be my views, and I'm going to make sure that I understand the climate and the environment that I am out there. Like, a lot of people are dependent on me. The Edmund Arthur Graduate School Scholarship in KUSC, the students that are being supported, is dependent on me being successful here. Like, there are a lot of people back, at Tech and UCC that when they see your journey, they are encouraged that, they can also embark on that journey. Like, students in my lab, my family, and all that. I'm not going to be an end time Paul or something outside. I'm not saying it's bad or anything, but what I'm trying to say is that yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, I go to church. Yes, I'm a conservative, to some extent and all that, but I also respect other people's views, and I understand the climate in which I'm in, because we live in a different world now.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. So,
Thank you.
Isaac, are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Just to piggyback on that, despite what you said, we know that it's also important for people to, just like you respect other people's views, I hope they also know your views and respect that. As in, we are supposed to be light and salt wherever we are. And that's also one of the things that you model for those who are looking up to you, so that if they also get into that same environment, they don't lose their values. They're able to still hold on to them and navigate through the system, and still, in a way, shine the light of Christ, because it's very important. We can't separate our goals and achievements from who we are in Christ. It has to be a holistic thing where whoever encounters you, they don't just encounter your work and expertise, but they encounter Christ. So I think that's, I don't know, Isaac, whether that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, Abby. I totally agree. So anybody who encounters you, like anybody who get close to me will know that, I'm a Christian. There are certain values that I hold and all that and all that. Yeah. I go to church. Like, I live in Alabama, Alabama is a very conservative state, and all that. But what I'm trying to say is that I'm also not going to be ignorant and go and make certain comments on social media to somebody, this, or see certain, group of people, and ignorantly go make certain comments in the name that I am this, I am that. Because I'm going to lose my job. Like, that is the environment that we live in now. I'm going to lose my job, and then I won't be able to propagate Christ to people. As helping the optometry students at Tech is propagating Christ for them. Help making people, people encouraged through, by God's grace, the journey that, that I'm on, that some of us are on, is propagating Christ. People knowing your humble beginnings and being encouraged by that is propagating Christ. My family being supportive, helping my family is propagating Christ. So yeah, so I mean, God is all I have. Like, without him, I can do nothing. But again, I'm not going to go out there also and make certain comments on social media when I know that, like, my institution knows my social media handle and can easily, I'm not going to make that mistake. Okay. I'm also, yes, I know all these, but I'm also very aware of my environment, because the other group of people that I hold different values from, they've not done anything wrong to me.
Okay, so has there ever been a time where it's not you necessarily going out to write anything on social media, but in your interactions, in your work with your colleagues, has there been a time where you've had to take a stand, concerning certain thorny issues, where you had to declare your values as a child of God, and how has it been like?
Yeah, easy. Like when I came to the US initially, this in 2014, initially, when the world at that stage was not even exposed as this. My senior PhD student in the lab was gay. My senior PhD student in the lab was gay. So what? So I'm not going to try and go and right from the onset, go and try and evangelize or try and react towards him in a weird way. There are certain things I need to learn from him. Like he knew how to program in MATLAB. I didn't know how to program in MATLAB from Ghana. So I had to come and learn programming and all those things, with my PhD and all that. He was the one going to teach me. So what? Because he's that, then all of a sudden my reaction towards him changes. Like, oh, I don't want him close. I won't talk to him. Or like what? I'll make subtle comments. Really? No. Like, how was I going to learn all that? Okay, so
definitely that's not the way to go. That what I'm trying to ask here is where you've been put in a position for you to sort of take a decision, or declare your stand. Has there been any situation like that, and how did you handle it?
No, I don't think there I don't think there has. America, the US we have religious freedom.
Yeah.
So as much as other people's what is the right word? As much as other people's beliefs and other things are protected, my Christianity is also protected. So nobody's going to shove anything down my throat that I don't want to do or I don't believe in. Okay. And it's reciprocal. The same way that you're also expected to respect other people's views. If they want you to talk to them about your belief, you talk to them politely about it. If they say they don't want you to talk to them about your belief, don't be a martyr.
Definitely.
So it's wisdom.
We are definitely not advocating for condemnation, because that's not what Christ teaches us. It's love and prayer for people. We who are enlightened to, in a loving way, draw others to the light. Okay, we've gone way beyond the time, but it's been a really good discussion, and I'm really grateful for you coming on and sharing your life with us, sharing your professional backgrounds and experiences with us. I believe that we've all benefited.
Finally.
One way or the other. Yes, finally. So if you have any final remarks, you can go ahead, and then we'll draw the curtain.
I think in our journeys we have to trust God. First and foremost, without Him we can do nothing. It is in Him that we move and have our being. And like, it's not all rosy. It takes courage. I've been in the US for more than 9 years now. I'm getting to my 10th year. It takes courage to leave one's home and what is familiar to somebody, to come into a foreign country to start life. Like, it's not easy, and without God, for me, without God, you can't, there's no way I could have succeeded, or I wouldn't say I've succeeded. I wouldn't say I'm there yet, but there's no way I would have been at this point, because there are still, heights that I believe that without humility, God will take me to. So I think at the fabric of everything that we do, we have to trust God. We have to believe in God. We have to work hard. Very important. But most importantly, too, we have to be aware of our environment. Because we are in a different environment right now that God can bless you to get funding for grad school here. and you can lose it because you were ignorant of certain things, or because you were so pumped up about something that you could have been wiser like a serpent about. So it's just the world that we live in now, that, at the fabric of everything, we have to trust God. We have to work hard. I wish I'm more patient about a lot of things. I'm working on that aspect of my life. But in His time, He makes everything beautiful.
It's rather unfortunate we run out of time, but I was going to say that, do you do anything else outside of research? Because it looks like research is your life. I wanted you to
I go to
tell us
church.
what you do to unwind, your social life. So the other side is church.
Yeah, I go to church. I cook. I go, I go to Publix or, Walmart or Kroger. I do groceries.
Your hobbies. Do you have any hobbies?
Cooking is hobby, Abigail.
Is it? Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, I have Amazon Prime. I watch a lot of movies.
I agree with you. Cooking is a hobby.
Yeah.
For sure.
I watch the NBA. I watch, the NFL. I watch the Premier League.
Do you do outdoor stuff like hiking?
Oh, I go to the gym.
Okay.
Yeah, I go to the gym sometimes, and I just walk around. Because you only have 3 months of good weather, right? Maybe 4 months ish of good weather anyway. So during this time that we are about, our window of good weather is dripping away.
Dripping, yeah.
You go outside, walk around a little bit. That's all you can do. But when the cold comes, what can you do? There is nothing you can do. I mean, it gets dark early, it's cold, it's depressing, but it is what it is.
So usually what do you do to unwind? Like when you just need to take a chill pill?
Hey, Abby.
Abigail, I just told you, I go to church, I cook, I drive around, I go to the gym, I watch movie, I watch something.
Okay.
All that, all those are unwinded.
Okay. All right. That's cool. It's good to know that you have a life. That's all I wanted to
I have a life. Yes, I have a life.
Abby,
yes,
get in touch with him after this.
Oh no, it's all part of the picture that we're trying to paint, so that people don't think that when you're for example, be on a tenure track, you can't have enjoyment in other aspects of your life.
Of life.
That's the part I want to bring out. So it's good to know that there's life outside of research. All right. So we'll end it here.
Somebody.
No, I think it was a mistake. Someone inadvertently unmuted themselves. Yes. So thank you so much, Edmund. This has been good.
Thank you for having me.
Bless you for.
Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
So if you can please pray with us to end. This time is you, Edmund.
Oh, it's me. Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we bless your holy name. We thank you for you are God and you are above all. We bless your holy name. We exalt you. We thank you for a wonderful time spent together. Lord, may your grace, may your will for our life be entrenched. May your perfect will be made manifest in our life. May you order our steps. May everybody's desire and career trajectory be made possible through your grace. May you protect us and order our steps. And may all that we do honor your holy name. It's all about you, O Lord, to your wonderful glory. We commit the ABBY Imani show into your hands, that may you grow from greater height to greater height to your wonderful glory. This we humbly pray. In Jesus' name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thanks for the blessing. God bless you.
Thank you very much.